We've absolutely scumbagged it late. And oh man, I can already hear it. I can already hear the noise. I can already hear the noise. I can already hear people saying what a horrendous, awful performance that was, only for us to scumbag it in the end. And that's not actually like an accurate, precise reflection of what this was. We did exactly what we wanted to do. We did exactly what Mikel told us to do. We executed the game plan to perfection. It's just the fact that that was the game plan. The game plan was to stink the game out, to make it really boring, to not give them anything, and then to try to nick one on the break or at some point. And that was that. I can hear it now, man. I can hear it now. Oh, goodness gracious me. Oh, man. Oh, man. Everybody. Oh, God. And the thing about this is like, Arteta's going to be so happy. He's not going to want to change anything. He's not going to say, like, there's not going to be any, like, oh, we should switch this up, or we should switch this up, or we should switch that up because we did this or that. He's going to be excited that that's how that went. He's going to feel like, we did exactly what we needed to do today. We did exactly what he told the team to go out and do today. And they did. They absolutely did go out and do that, exactly what the team's supposed to do. As far as the manager's remit, it was slow, it was methodical, it was game management, it was just don't get scored on, and maybe find the a little bit of quality going forward at some point in the game, and we did, but overall that was a poor. I mean, it's tough to say it was a poor performance because we did what they were told to do. They did what they. There were some poor performances in there, like Martin Zubamendi was a ghost. He did a lot of covering, covered a lot of territory, but he had a little spell, near the end, kind of when Odegaard got hurt, and then kind of faded from the game, and then left the game for that like 10 minutes. I think that Zuby was decent, but no one's getting that 90 minutes back. And if you watch that one as a neutral instead of the Bayern Real Madrid game, you effed up. I don't know what you were doing with your life, because that was this was not a game for the neutral. I'll tell you that much. Incredibly boring. And that was what Arsenal wanted to do. So it's an interesting, it's kind of a unique way to feel about it, because it's not like we were terrible and we made ridiculous amounts of mistakes and we're under all kinds of pressure. It's more like we didn't really try to win the game that hard. We really wanted it to be exactly what it was. Like, they wanted it to be exactly what it was. And while you can have your opinion on whether or not that's a cool approach or a good approach or a winning approach or, the management and philosophy to have when you're trying to win the Champions League, but at the end of the day, Arteta is going to be so smug, just smug as he could be, because he's like, well, it worked. Everything I did worked. If you look deeper, of course, Trossard being so narrow when he plays is and then not like doing anything with it and then not making the overload matter is like when Martinelli comes in and has, a little 5-minute cameo that outdoes your whole 85 minutes or 80 minutes, and why does that happen so much? Why does that happen so much is that the other left winger comes in and shows you up immediately. Like, why does it have to be like that? It's a little frustrating. I have to stop myself from getting frustrated with this because it's like I knew this was coming. Like 150%, I knew this was going to be the approach to the game. It's not what I wanted. It's not what I called for. It's not what I, thought might be a better approach. But some of the aspects of what I would have wanted, we did do. We did press high, and we did force them to cause turnovers. But our transition from defense to attack is just whatever he's told them just makes us so slow. Like, it's like he's told them to have the same mentality when you're building up the play as when you've won the ball high up the pitch. There was a lot of going backwards, side to side. And I understand when we're building up and we're trying to keep the game controlled and we're trying to slowly gain territory, and work them side to side. I understand that. But when we win the ball high up the pitch and we're still turning around and going backwards, you have to, he's telling them to do that. Like, he's telling them to prioritize control, prioritize possession. And it's like, man, it makes for such a boring game. And it's okay. It's acceptable when you win. But for me, it's like such a fine line. It's like such a fine line, right? Because if that's 0-0, there's a meltdown in the fans. It's an absolute meltdown in the fan base, right? And so why are we on this fine line? Why do we insist upon, playing it so close every single game? And I get it. Like, I understand the idea and the mentality, but it's like you play with fire, man. You're playing with you're just cutting it too close. I would just prefer us to go and be like, look, we're the better team. We're going to do what we do best. We're going to possess the ball. We're going to press you really high. We're going to, come at you quickly with precision and efficiency. But instead, it's like, nope, let's just make sure they don't score. Like, literally, that was the remit today. Don't let them score. And if we get one, we get one. And that attitude, I just don't feel like that attitude is going to work against, definitely not against Barcelona. Bayern versus Madrid, what a game. Vinny's usual crying for penalty and a foul. Meanwhile, Lise performed next level. Yeah, Prague. For the neutral, as I said earlier, I was telling SC, if you're the neutral and you chose to watch Arsenal Sporting over Bayern versus Madrid, you effed up. You definitely effed up. Like, I don't even have to tell you, Prague, that this game the Arsenal Sporting game was boring. And it's 90 minutes. No one's ever getting back. But at the end of the day, like, Arteta's just going to be so smug because what he did worked. His plan worked. And, Kai Havertz comes in as the sub and gets the winner. But there were plenty of things I could pick out in this performance. Plenty of things I could pick out in this performance to be like, there was sloppiness from Martin Zubimendi. He had a 10-minute spell where he was decent. The rest of the time, he was a passenger. Trossard didn't really do much because of how narrow he comes in the formation. It makes no sense to me. Raya had to bail us out. He may, if you look at the actual chances for both sides and the shots that went on goal, Raya had to make the saves. Raya actually had to make 3 way more difficult saves. All of our shots were right at the Sporting keeper, right at him, until the goal. and we did hit the bar. But other than that, we didn't really make the goalkeeper work. And yes, of course, it's a byproduct of like not really trying to go forward and score lots of goals, but we sacrifice so much to be defensively sound. And while I think that Sporting did not necessarily expect us to be so passive, and so they were a little bit passive themselves, and they were a bit afraid of us going the other direction, and so they were afraid to really put the pressure on that they did put on Bodo. But I think it was a function of how passive we were, and they just weren't expecting that, and we ended up, finding some quality in the end. But like, why didn't we do that more and more often? If Trossard stays wide and maybe goes at his man a little bit more, like the first time Trossard actually took on his man, we got a ball to the back post, the goalkeeper misses it, and it goes off Madueke, and there was a chop opportunity. Gyökeres was just under it. The first time Martinelli goes around a guy and cuts inside, we score the goal. Martinelli came in and was actually trying to go at his man, was actually trying to, beat his man, look up, get into the middle. Like, he was actually trying. Trossard was nowhere to be found on that left wing because he was just, it was tactics. They tell him to step into the middle, of course, but there's no one there on the left-hand side. And so Declan Rice ended up being like the only person running the left-hand side. If you look at the heat maps for our players, I guarantee Declan Rice is the farthest person to the left. And he's like everywhere else as well. But like when we're in possession, he popped up on the left far more than anybody else. Calafiori even popped up in the left wing a couple of times. So it's tough it's really tough to kind of speak on this one because it's always like there's always a caveat to what I'm saying because there aren't necessarily the priority wasn't to go forward. The priority, what a goal. They're showing the replay of the highlights from Bayern and Madrid, and that first goal for Bayern is that's good stuff there. But yeah, it's like we weren't like really trying to go at it, The pressure is rising day by day for Arsenal. Yeah, the pressure's there, man. The pressure is definitely there for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. But the thing is, after this game and that result and how it ended up in the end, Mikel Arteta will be over the moon. He's gonna be so excited that we play. Listen to the press conference afterwards. I guarantee he's gonna be like, "Oh, we played really well. We did exactly what we wanted to do." Like he's pumped. He's gassed. Mikel Arteta is absolutely gassed from that because it's exactly what he wanted. It's exactly what he wanted. And the thing about it is, if you win, we were 1 minute away from an absolute meltdown. We were 1 minute away from the pylon. We were 1 minute away from all the Arteta outers dancing a jig and freaking out and having their way. We were 1 minute away from that. And it's like I said, it's that fine line. And if it works, it works. If we get over the line and we win a trophy, we win the league or we win the Champions League this season, I'm chuffed. I'm happy as a clam. And, whatever gets it done, But all throughout Arteta's tenure, I have been critical of this game management style, this game management philosophy of handbrake on, make sure you don't lose, make sure you stay in control of the game. We didn't want to get into a shootout. And I understand that we executed that effectively today, and we didn't get into a shootout, and we didn't want to get into a shootout with Sporting. But I just feel like we're better than this. I feel like I just feel like we have the squad. Yeah, I'm watching the highlights right now, Prague, on the CBS broadcast. Um, the what Neuer did on the Vinny breakaway, big save, big stuff from for me. Neuer's one of the goats between the sticks for me. Neuer is definitely a badass. Has been for ages, still is. What a great save on Mbappe. Yeah, so Bayern are the team to beat for me. Bayern and Paris are the teams to beat, the favorites, of course. Um, if we go to the Camp Nou and put in that stinker that we put in today and try to stink it out like that, I think we'll be in for a surprise because I think that they are much more clinical. They're much more better much better at chance creation. Um, and they have the star power, Barcelona. And if we try to do that, I think we might concede. And if we concede and then try to get back into it with and then like get into a shootout with Barcelona, we'll get destroyed. I think if it's an open match versus Barcelona, we'll get absolutely wrecked. And I also think that if we don't come out and try to get in their face a little bit and really try to put it on them at times, I think we'll be in a lot of trouble versus Barcelona. And so, like I said at the beginning, I understand it. I expected it. It worries me. That approach, that mentality. And today he got it right. Today it worked. Eventually we got in and got the goal. But for me, why not work that goal earlier? Why not, beat the man more often? Why not go at him far more often on the left-hand side as well as on the right-hand side? Madueke was going at him. But if we're attacking both the outside backs over and over and over again, you know what happens? The space opens up in the middle, which is where we like to try and force it anyway, to try to go to the byline and then cut it back and pass it slow and work some space for Odegaard, to get the cross in. That's like bread and butter stuff for us. But if you actually attack your outside back and actually try to go at him instead of passing it sideways and passing it backwards 87 to 95% of the time, then the space opens up because it's in the left back's mind. And how the left back didn't get a yellow today, Araujo or whatever, he fouled Madueke, he kicked Madueke from behind about 5 times. Dalman was on the field for all of 12 minutes, and he kicked him about 6 times. It's shocking he didn't get a yellow, to be honest with you. But, all in all, like, the win, of course, gassed about the win, gassed to take a lead back to the Emirates. That wasn't necessarily like the response, the performance that you wanted to have after, losing 2 games, going out of 2 cups. You kind of wanted to have a really energetic blitzkrieg of a kind of performance. But Arteta never does what I want, of course. And I definitely knew this was going to be the kind of performance we were going to put in. I hope, and I'm intrigued to find out, supposing we do make it through, that to see what he does versus Barcelona, and hopefully he will be a little bit more, a little bit braver, a little bit more willing to attack them and kind of go at them. No way. No, that's gross, Prague. That's really, really gross. I haven't seen that. I'll have to go look that up after this. That's absolutely disgusting, actually. I wouldn't put a Spurs jersey on for anything. In fact, Prague, of course, my favorite shirt. What am I wearing today? Of course, I wouldn't wear a Spurs shirt for nothing. So that's pretty crazy. I'll have to go check that out. But yeah, all in all, I'm happy with the win, of course. And you can't be too upset with the passivity, just because we knew it was coming. Like it's coming, and if it doesn't work, that's when you get upset. But as long as we're winning, what can you do? They're never going to do exactly what I want to do. Of course, they're not going to, play the rock and roll in your face kind of stuff that I think, the Champions League deserves. And no one's going to tell you that was a Champions League classic, but we got the job done. And at the end of the day, you can't fault them for that. You can't fault them for that. And so, yeah, I think I might cut the end of this here and release it as another match reaction as well. And of course, I'll probably going to be live later on with Anton over on Fire Them Cannons. Probably make it a simulcast as well, so it'll be live here as well. But yeah, the Arsenal win 1-0, big win. Not necessarily the performance we wanted, but definitely the result we will take. And we'll go back to the Emirates next week with a 1-0 victory. Of course, so go ahead and smash up the likes on your way out. I certainly appreciate everyone that has tuned in. Of course, subscribe to the channel. If you are new, it would be an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to welcome you to the community. Of course, it helps us get pushed out to all the new viewers. We are on the road to 500. And make sure you got the notification bell on each and every time so you know when we are live. There will be more content coming out right around the corner, so make sure you are locked in. Of course, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it, and you. We'll see you next.